Good evening. My name's Andrew Mcllwain. I'm the Managing Director of Investigator Resources, an ASX-listed company. The ticker is IVR. Investigator's primary asset is this Paris Silver Project, which is located in central South Australia. Project unique in Australian terms in that it's a primary silver project, has a small amount of lead, but our focus is on the silver recovery. A resource update we provided this year, 57 million ounces of silver. So today's terms, that's about $2 billion Australian dollars value in the ground. And we're in a position where we've completed the pre-feasibility study and we're advancing and completing the definitive feasibility study.
Andrew, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on a Friday night from Australia. So I do appreciate it, really do. You just raised some money. That'll get you through to, the end of the DFS, will it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we probably had enough cash. We had about 2.9 at the end of October, and that would have seen us able to complete the DFS, but we would have been pretty lean on some other things that we were looking at. What it does is it means 2024 is a clear runway for us. We're not starting the year wanting to raise funds to complete anything. We complete the DFS first half next year, and we've got plenty of cash in the bank.
So, obviously you've got a lot of the DFS work done. What's left to do?
Look, we've done some relatively exciting things on the ground that add no sort of news to the project. We've completed environmental surveys. We've done hydrological drilling. Those things are done. What we're completing now is, in fact, lead recovery test work. When we put the PFS together, it was silver-only project. What can we make this work on silver? Knowing that we've got about $300 million worth of lead in the resource, how do we recover that? First, to admit it's a challenging lead to recover, but we had a pretty comprehensive program running now in the lab, and we're just starting to pull those results together, trying to understand what lead we can get out, and any revenue from lead goes straight to the bottom line because all our costs will be covered by silver.
Just I know the DFS will be out sort of first half next year, but just remind people what the PFS numbers threw up. Just give a sense of what we're heading towards. Well, and then we can add the lead to it.
Yeah, sure. So we in the PFS, it was released in November 2021, and I'll actually come back and touch base on why it's taken a while to get to where we are. But in 2021, we put a PFS together that was based on a 34 Australian dollar silver price. Reminding everyone it's 36 today, so a little ahead. 130 million capex saw us produce about 4 or 5 million ounces of silver per annum for about 7 years. Really simple open pit, about 70% of it's rip and dig rather than having to drill and blast it. It's only the bottom part. Average recoveries of silver about 75%. NPV of the project then was in excess of $200 million. IRR of 42%. So quite a robust project. All-in sustaining cost was $1,745. It was half, margin of 50%. It was half the prevailing price at the time.
Right. Okay. So, given the capex, I think it was, from memory, I think it was about 130 million, right? And it's a sort of, I say, it's a very decent, very healthy IRR in there, but. The next phase is about not just once you've delivered the DFS, you've got to be having an eye towards how do I get this thing funded. So the capex is not big. That's the good news. What are you thinking? How does this thing get funded?
Sure. So look, I'm pretty comfortable we'll bring in a capex number in spite of some inflation over the last 18 months, close to or less than that. And the reason for that is that we've got a pretty lean team, a very hungry engineering group, who are doing drafting in Vietnam, sourcing steel offshore and things like that, which we think, and not forgetting this is not a 20-year project, so we can afford to put things together and not paint them. So, we don't have to have a Rolls Royce. Scottish by background or by heritage, so we'll have a pretty lean approach. The thing that changes if we can bring some lead revenue to the table, we expect to expand the resource, increase the mine life. So there are a couple of things we'll be looking for out of the DFS. And when we put the PFS together, it was certainly robust enough that it could carry, in principle, half debt, half equity. How we find the equity component, I suppose there's a few opportunities in the silver space, whether it be silver streaming, forward sales, or any number of those sort of instruments. So we have a period of time between completing the DFS and whilst we're going through the regulatory approval that we'll work through that financing opportunity or options.
Right, okay. So I guess we'll hear more about that as you kind of go through the phases there. With regards to some of the long poles in the tent, the things that could hold you up. So you talk about regulatory approvals. What else is sort of outstanding from that point of view?
Yeah, so look, what the South Australian Department requires to do is complete the DFS, demonstrate a robust project, and from then we apply for a mining lease. Once we get the mining lease, we apply for an environmental permit. Very straightforward process. Many have done it in South Australia. It's a tier 1 jurisdiction, but importantly, we're actually in the middle of nowhere. We have no impact. There's no conflicting land use. There's no community nearby. There's no watershed. We're in a parched environment, which is why the hydrological study was quite important for us to be able to demonstrate we could find water to run the process plant. Next few steps for us are, in fact, optimising the pit, and then we'll do the financial evaluation. But I did mention I'd circle back. We took a little bit of time last year. We went quiet. I'd say stealth mode, but we went quiet because we had an area that was important or had been flagged by the local native title owners that they'd asked us to take awareness of it. It wasn't restricted access, and we didn't want to impact that. It took us about 18 months to gain access and approval to that, and that allowed us to step the resource out by 250 metres. Final part of the puzzle is we need to have a production mining agreement with the native title holders, and we'll do that also whilst we're in that regulatory phase. Nothing new, nothing unusual. We're not trying to change known practices. This is a pretty straightforward project.
Right, okay. And I guess your shareholders will want to know, look, it's a very tight environment out there. It's been a difficult year for a difficult couple of years for precious metals for sure. You're going into this phase now where you're kind of, obviously, one, got to complete the DFS, and then two, kind of get into all that kind of funding stuff. It's what I refer to as the boring phase, right? So not a lot going on, but your shareholders want you focused, but at the same time want to hear from you in terms of what is there further upside? Is there further blue sky? So how do you get that balance right?
Yeah, sure. Look, once we've completed the DFS, that project's relatively finite. That said, we do have cash, and what we'll be applying that to is some regional exploration opportunities. We keep challenging ourselves that Paris can't be the only resource in the district. So next year we'll be doing some seismic work. We're doing a study with the CSIRO to understand the metal genesis. We'll also do some other drilling and soil sampling to try and vector in on another resource. We've got a couple of silver occurrences. They're not the same as Paris, but we're going to be working them up to see if they can add to Paris.
Right. Okay. So, but you're not going to be, I guess, distributing cash. You're going to stay focused, get this thing over the line. That's number one priority, right?
Look, absolutely. And look, we're in a unique position in the ASX. We are the only primary silver project in Australia. There's a couple of others that have led base metals projects that have got high silver components. We're the highest grade. We're certainly the only primary one. So we're actually, if you want to be exposed to silver, you want to have Investigator in your portfolio.
Right, okay. And let's just talk about some share price markets, etc. Obviously, silver, I think the expectation is precious metals actually starts motoring again next year.
Unfortunately,
a lot of commentators saying that. A lot of certainly the fund managers are expecting that. How do you move from where you are now to actually get notice, but two, get a kind of ahead of the crowd? Because it's going to be a very, very competitive space. I mean, a lot of desperate people out there chasing capital. What makes your project so special?
Yeah, so look, it doesn't have the impediments to construction and completion that many other projects do. And as I said, the issue of no conflicting land use and watershed and those sorts of things. As I said, we provide a unique exposure to the silver price, and one of the things that we'll be looking at is potentially streaming as a funding model, and that'll take us into the North American market. And certainly the North American market understands silver better. So we haven't tapped that yet, but we expect to start to increase our exposure.
Okay, and would that mean an OTC listing? Is that what you're thinking?
Look, we've contemplated that, and I suppose one of the things is that we've taken the view that if we do that, we need to be in the North America, say, every quarter to be able to promote that. We haven't seen the benefit of it, but it may well be. We've certainly been down the path and looked at the opportunity, and we have that in our back pocket. It's
kind of interesting, actually, because a lot of the Mexican silver companies, struggling at the moment, partly because of the politics of the moment, and partly because of the market. But nevertheless, I think silver projects elsewhere in the world seem to be gaining traction off the back of that. So it'll be interesting to see how you play that. Well, look, Andrew, I know it's Friday night. You've got to get on with it. Appreciate the update. It's been a good year so far. look forward to hearing from you next year.
Look, Brad, thanks very much. And it has been a great year, tough market, but having raised money, in fact, just this week, puts us in a great position for next year. And we've got plenty of news to come out of Investigator.